I'm not, as Forrest Gump said, a smart man, but smart enough to know that this week's news about nuclear fusion has big implications for how we power our entire world. Our Steve Steger knew Colorado's deep history with nuclear power, so he scoured the archives and also sat down with a very smart man. Steve will do his best to explain to me what he learned today.
Dateline, Platteville, Colorado. It's 1965, a year of opportunity. These men at the forefront of a new power generation. Nuclear. All right, that's getting old. But felt appropriate over this film of the construction of the Fort St Vrain Nuclear plant that we found in the 9 News archives.
A advanced gas-cooled reactor that ran for about 10 years.
Dr. Jeffrey King is a professor of nuclear science at the Colorado School of Mines, and he's been on the property of the Fort St Vrain nuclear plant.
It was an experimental reactor. It was a first of a kind.
Well, former nuclear plant.
After a while, the utility decided it wasn't economic to keep it up, and so they shut it down.
It's now a natural gas turbine site, a chapter in Colorado's nuclear history that includes some real doozies, like Rocky Flats.
Certainly there is controversy there and things that were honestly not done well or to the standards we would do today.
And Project Rollison, a late 60s attempt to use nuclear weapons to essentially frack on the western slope.
My dad actually remembers seeing the device and remembers feeling like the ground vibrate when they did the test.
Didn't work that well.
It is, in fact, a probably terrible way to try to stimulate natural gas production.
But news out of California this week is big. The first example of nuclear fusion, producing more energy than expended. Too complex to explain in a TV news story, but I like the way Professor King did.
Kind of joke, kind of a Death Star-like thing, but I mean, it's this giant laser beam that focuses on this tiny object and compresses this object.
He's a nuclear fission fan and remains skeptical of whether fusion can be done on a big scale.
We're looking at a giant machine.
He says it could end up being a lot like Fort St Vrain, hard to make commercially viable. That doesn't discount what an important moment this is.
They've made an important first step.
Now, Professor King says a big topic of conversation has been the fact that fusion doesn't result in a lot of radioactive waste like fission does. But he says there's still radioactive waste in the form of tritium, which we all know is an isotope of hydrogen. He says that'll be another obstacle to overcome, obviously, which is why he says it could take decades to try to figure out how this is going to work on a large scale and produce power, because you need a gigantic building to be able to pull this off. And they've done it just barely with a little tiny speck. It's going to be really, really tough to figure out.
I suppose as a start, I mean, here's the deal. I'm dumb as a doornail, but
Same here. Yeah, this was tough. This was really tough.
I feel like a good bulk of what I think I know about how nuclear power works shamefully came from The Simpsons.
We talked about this. So honestly, he says that's the impact that like everybody thinks of nuclear that way. And it's something that they're trying to overcome because, you know, you think of like nuclear as these little glowing green orbs.
Yeah,
that, like,
Homer with the little glowing orbs on the end of the stick. And
it actually glows blue, by the way, not green. And you know, like you think of Mr. Burns as like the evil, you know, corrupt boss of the power plant, polluted lakes and rivers. That like nuclear scientists have been working for a really long time to try to overcome that because it's a clean source of power. You just have to manage the waste the right way and you're good to go.
They must be so frustrated with us. Okay.
I'm hoping he's not watching tonight.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a 25-minute conversation and I got back to my desk and I was like, how am I gonna?
Yeah. You did your best.
Thank you.
You did your best.